Salutations and shit, guys. Merry motherfucking Christmas. Actually, happy Kwanzaa. So, dual celebrations. So anyone that may celebrate Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. That too has coming on. Actually, it's today Hanukkah. I feel like that might be today. No, I don't know. Well, I know Hanukkah is before Christmas this year. I just don't know what day. And this is going to be my present to you. So hope you enjoy, motherfuckers. I am a little bit excited about this week's episode. So I was inspired by my beautiful hoodie here, and it says, "My Santa was a black woman," and it's going to start off the episode, I guess, telling you guys how I found out Santa wasn't. Well, before I say he isn't real, right? Let me just jump into the story. So the time that my mother tried to put me on, like, hey girl, I did this, was a day. Never forget it. Because I, grown as I am, 34 years old, admittedly, without shame, still believe in Santa Claus. Hear me out though. So D. Carey, host of your new favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit, where I talk more about the experiences of travel, what was learned, what was experienced with myself, and occasionally a guest or a few guests. And we kind of put to, I guess, not necessarily use, but we tie in how our travel experiences can relate to common topics like gender, race. I love talking about blackness abroad and, different everyday topics that correlate to traffic or can be rediscussed through the lens of traffic. Not traffic, fucking travel. You get where I'm going. So that being said, I can, of course, parlay this whole Santa idea into travel. So let me first start you with my Christmas story. I have always been a very imaginative and creative child. Always been my thing. And I vividly remember these were my Christmas experiences that lead me to believe that there's always some kind of, like, and by Santa, I don't think that some white dude shows up in, the crib and leaves presents, but I do believe that there is a certain spirit of Christmas that is embodied in the idea of Santa that makes things happen that somehow could not or should not have happened. So I had to have been around 5, and I was outside for some reason. So I'm assuming that it was Christmas night, or because my family doesn't celebrate Christmas Eve. We're very much so Christmas. And I was outside. It snowed that year. And for some reason, I'm looking in the sky thinking that I'm checking for Santa Claus and, the whole sleigh and the reindeer thing. And I look down and I see this glowing red circle under the snow. And I was convinced that Rudolph lost his nose and that for some reason Christmas was going to be on pause, or that there'd be some type of difficulty in everyone getting their gifts because Rudolph didn't have a nose. So there's that on that. I vividly remember that. Additionally, my brother was born in November, the November that I was 5. So I'm like, ooh, damn, did I write in my letter, like, yo, I got a brother now? Like, was my Christmas list, like, was my Christmas, shebang before I had a brother or after I had a brother? I was just concerned that now that my brother was here, he can't write a letter. So how's Santa going to know that this nigga needs gifts for Christmas, right? So all that being said, I was a little worried that my brother wasn't going to get anything because benevolent, okay? I am forever generous and forever a woman of heart and merit. So I remember coming down the stairs, and as I'm looking to the corner where my mom, and to this day, if she puts up a tree, it's always in the same corner. So I'm looking to where the Christmas tree is, and you could not tell me I did not see one stuffed animal, and I'll never forget the stuffed animal. I don't know if my mama still got it or nothing, but it was, and I see it very vividly. It was a gray, like, fox, and it was like in a tracksuit. It had like the shiny blue shorts on. It had on like a white tank top. I think the shit said like USA. And it was like a fox that had like, arms and legs, and not like on, paws or nothing like that. It wasn't like on all fours. It was just in like, a human form, if you will. Like it had arms and legs. It was gray, and it had like white whiskers, like white puffs or some shit like that. But I came down the stairs. I saw one. I saw like a sparkle or a glitter or something that 5-year-old me saw this. And then there were two. So I'm like, oh, my nigga Santa remembered my brother. Like, he came back and made sure my brother got one too. So I don't know what I was thinking or what I experienced. But to this day, I will never forget those experiences and how they just were like, they really resonated with me. So it's always something that I will remember that happened somehow in my mind on its own because of the magic of Christmas. So other than my birthday, Christmas will always be my favorite holiday because there's just something special about the energy of the holidays that, just makes people happy, makes people, I guess a little more appreciative of the things that they have and the way that they're able to make things happen, even though they feel like they can't make them happen. And that in turn falls kind of into how I think travel kind of fell into my lap, because for the longest, I didn't think travel was possible. And that's because I didn't think that I could afford travel. I mentioned before, I didn't leave the country until I was 30 because I always had the impression that I had to wait till I had a certain job, wait till I was making a certain amount of money and had a certain amount of just disposable income like saved up in an account that I could put towards travel. That's not how I travel. At your own, I don't want to say at your own risk, but like, note that I am single, no kids, and I literally have no responsibility other than myself and my dog. So it's easier for me to spend the money that I make on travel because I don't have anyone else to provide for. So that being said, understand that I get that if you have more responsibilities, that your bag to pull from ain't exactly the same. But so to the travel conversation, right? And I brought up my my Christmas story because I got this hoodie and it's so fucking soft. I mean, ridiculously soft. But I ordered this hoodie, randomly saw Van Lathan, the TMZ guy, if you guys aren't familiar with him. Otherwise, he has this incredible podcast called the Red Pill Podcast. And so I followed him on Instagram, and I think he had a story, or I don't know what it was, but I saw that he was selling hoodies. And this hoodie definitely reminded me of the day my mom tried to tell me that she was Santa, and I really wasn't with the shits. Oh, so, right. The hoodie reminded me of the story, and then I was supposed to tell you about the story. So I'm sitting, I don't know how old I was. I guess I was old enough. And I'm sitting on the floor, I'm looking at, tissue paper, wrapping paper, playing with some shit. And my mama was kind of like, so did you get everything that you wanted? And I'm like, yeah, everything's cool, it's cool. Like, yeah, I'm really happy. And she was just like, all right, I really tried my best. And I was just like, but what do you have to do with, I see what you're doing there. I see what you're trying to do. I understood that she was trying to imply that she was the one that provided for all of this. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, girl, I get it. Like, y'all work together, whatever. So I've always held on to the notion that Santa Claus is real. And I explained to you that I don't think there's someone coming into the crib, but that there is some special magic that somehow when you don't have it, you end up finding it and you end up pulling it off somehow. And I also learned as a grown adult giving gifts to kids that children tend to kind of be excited about whatever the fuck you give them. I'd given my goddaughter some gifts, like I was in my 20s, and the youngest one, Tia, I think I got her, and it's like at the time it was three of them, and I had gotten them like shirts from Old Navy because budget, right? And when I tell you just the sound of that baby opening the gift, she was so excited. She was like, it's what I always wanted. And I was just like, girl, I think it was like a $10 shirt or like a $5 shirt because, again, budget. And it's a bunch of y'all. It's a lot of kids and like adults, parents, and all that other kind of people I had to buy gifts for. But her appreciation for what I did do for her, that always resonated with me. And it was always one of those things that made me realize that a lot of times you've got this grandiose idea in your mind of what's good enough. And sometimes you just doing your best, or sometimes you just doing something is actually good enough. So that got me to thinking, and I was wondering what other kind of things did I believe to be true until I kind of had the bubble burst, right? What kind of things did I actively think were, like normal? Or what did I hold beliefs on that I didn't get to expand upon until I began traveling? And not just like misconceptions, you know what I mean? Just like I thought that they were pretty standard, if you will, right? So one of the first things that I definitely thought used to be like one of the things I thought was true was that the exterior of the exterior, like the outside, the facade of a building, is what determines whether or not it can be inhabited. Because here in the States, for the most part, if a building is extremely dilapidated, if you look at it and it's falling apart, it's crumbling, it's missing windows, and part of the bricks on one side are missing. Not to the extent that there's an extra hole in the building, but like, the bricks are visibly, crumbling and just not all present. Like you can see the wear on the building, right? People aren't going to reside in those kinds of buildings. People aren't going to have businesses in those kinds of buildings. And learned that not to be true. I went to Cuba and realized that buildings that if I were to see this exact same building in New York, there would be nothing happening inside of a legal matter. Like it would be like, a trap house or something like that, or it'd be like, place where when squatters go or something like that. But people aren't going to, sell goods or prepare or, offer services from a building like that. But in Cuba, absolutely can happen. You can watch people come in and out of a building that doesn't look like it's going to last any longer than your time it takes to walk from one end of the block to the other end of the block. But this is the way, like, people live in these buildings. And it was the same thing I showed on my Instagram, that in Tel Aviv, the building that I was staying in, like on the outside, it looked horrible. Like I feel like there were 3 stories. I stayed on the first story, so I don't know how many stories were in the building. I think it was like 3. But it was like they were missing windows from like all 3 of the windows. Like there was no window. It was just like the hole for the window. It was like 3 or 4 different floors of like open windows. The bricks looked real they looked really it looked bad, y'all. The apartment looked terrible. And thankfully I didn't notice when I first, tried to check in, if you will. But the insides of these places look fine. I showed you guys in Tel Aviv I showed you the outside, and I had a video that I posted of the inside. And it was a really comfortable apartment, had hot water. It was clean. I was comfortable. I felt safe while I was in there. Same thing in Cuba. Even though the outside of the building looked real janky, it looked crazy, you get inside, you've got hot water, you've got a warm bed. Like the apartment itself is nicely decorated. I had a fully functioning kitchen, didn't smell. You feel comfortable and you feel safe inside. So I learned from traveling that different, I guess, structural codes or different expectations on what a usable building is aren't the same. So that was an eye opener. Another thing, I assumed, if you will, that food codes were pretty global. Now, keep in mind, I'm thinking that food codes were global within reason. I'm not expecting to go to a small village where, say, there's no electricity, or a village where, indoor plumbing is questionable whether or not you'll get it in all places. I'm not talking about traveling to areas like that. I'm talking about if I'm staying in an apartment that's got a sick ass terrace and, functioning appliances like a stove, a microwave, um, even possibly a TV in the apartment. I'm expecting that, this is a modern area or like a modern space that's going to have, restaurants or food establishments that are going to have certain regulations or normal regulations in terms of you're going to expect that they, serve food a certain way. So in Cuba, probably also one of the best meals I've ever had abroad. Um, I was shopping at a market across the street from, well, it was, if this is the beach, then I don't know if you can see me. Let me see if that makes sense. Yeah, like say this is the beach. Like this is my hand here is the shore. This is water here where the soda can is. This is the side, like, just regular street or whatever. And so they've got like tables and stands and little areas where you can purchase goods and all that kind of shit. Cross an actual street, and here are a bunch of food stands, like mini, not restaurants, but like stands, little fronts that have being prepared in the back. Now, I had a certain expectation. And so when the woman was putting my food into, I don't even remember, I think she put it, because I told her I wanted it to go. Well, the guy from the little marketplace walked me across the street and helped me order my food. Shout out to that guy. But I told them basically, I'm not going to stand here and eat it, so I want to bring it back. So, box it or something. Homegirl proceeded to not place the cigarette she was smoking down, but to take the cigarette out of her mouth and then like scoop my food into the box with the cigarette, with the hand that had the cigarette in it. So it's kind of like she's got the cigarette, y'all. She's with, plopping the food in the box with the cigarette hand. So I'm like, in my mind, it's like I'm now getting cigarette ash in my food because same hand. And of course, it's outside, flies. There are flies just floating and flying and landing, and she is oblivious to the flies. She continued to scoop. The fly would land on the side of the box while she's scooping, and she's not even swatting it away. And it was horrific to watch, but I'm in a new place, so I don't know what the norm is. And she didn't hawk back and spit into my plate. You know what I mean? But it was very like alarming to me to watch like no gloves, nothing. You know what I mean? Like she used the spoon to touch everything, but it's just like in the States, you're used to certain things. Like even if you get food from a food truck, gloves, it's a thing. It just, that didn't happen in this instance that well. I bet you a bitch ate that shit though. I still ate it. Didn't get sick. Amen. Thank you. He's good. But it was so good. So good. But it really set me back. Like it really alarmed me just to see it. And it was one of those things where it's kind of like I had to check. I don't want to say like my privilege, because I feel like it's not, it's kind of a right to have clean food and clean drinking water for everybody. not just, people that come from very well established countries or anything like that. But just a reminder that everyone's norm isn't the same. And just because you're used to things a certain way doesn't mean that that's everyone's norm. And just because something isn't necessarily normal doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to kill you also. You know what I mean? Like, we're all aware that, and if you don't know, chances are, summertime, Mr. Softy, don't wash his hands, okay? I used to fuck with a guy back in college that drove a Mr. Softy truck, and that nigga ain't never fucking worked. It ain't never worked. So he wasn't washing his hands, y'all. And I know plenty of other trucks where the sinks weren't working, and these is just regular people. So people don't wash their hands. So yeah, gross. Consider those things. What was the other thing? Okay, this one, pricing and travel. So back to like what I had started saying to you guys before, I had the misconception that everything about travel was expensive, because when you see travel, generally you're portrayed a vision of luxury travel. You're shown shit like, Four Seasons, really expensive hotels, and like these really, I guess you can say, luxurious accommodations, and just real incredible looking spaces and places where people go, and you just look and you just think, oh my God, like, I don't have, in your mind, you're pricing it. You're putting a price on what it is that you're seeing. You're not necessarily looking up what the price is. You're just assuming when you don't know any better, right? So I had I had the misconception. It was a belief that I had that everything about travel was going to be really expensive. But it's also, what was really funny about that is that I wasn't oblivious to the idea that things are cheaper in other countries, right? So it's one of those things where something that you can believe to be true kind of shifts when you actually see it put into practice. So here we go. The most expensive thing about travel generally is the airfare. Well, that's the thing that's the least negotiable. You have different ways to find inexpensive airfare and ways to travel, but it is what it is. You don't set the price on what your flight's going to be. I mean, unless you got that kind of hookup, then it is what it is. May the odds ever be in your favor, y'all, whatever. But that being said, it's generally the most expensive thing about when you travel. So, no, I'm good. Thank you. So it's usually the most expensive thing about traveling. And once you get there, the rest of travel doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to stay in a 5-star hotel. Airbnb is a thing. Couch surfing, we learned, is a thing. You can go to a hostel. There are a lot of different affordable ways to travel that don't include you sleeping, under a bridge someplace. It's definitely possible to travel within whatever the budget is that you're setting. So I had to really not repackage, but what's the word I'm looking for? I had to move the bar on where I thought travel could start. So it's not always cheap, but you can go. And then also it's one of those things where it is a privilege. So there's an understanding that if you're concerned with basic needs, like you're not sure if you're going to have your rent every month, if you're not sure how you're going to pay for groceries or food or gas or making sure your utilities are paid, if you're unsure of how the basics are going to get met, then of course you're not necessarily going to be able to think of spending $500 to $1,000 on something. But keep in mind, you don't even have to spend $1,000. I always like to remind people, what was the first time? I think it was the first time I went to Europe. My flight and my accommodations cost me $600.22. That was my flight to Barcelona, and I'm pretty sure I had a layover someplace. I don't remember where I had a layover, but I had a layover someplace. So I went to Barcelona, had a layover someplace, and paid for my Airbnb, which was actually an apartment. Granted, it was like an hour outside of Barcelona, give or take, about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Barcelona. But it only ran me $600 round trip flight with a layover in another country and my Airbnb in Barcelona. $600, y'all. So you can do full ass trips for less than $1,000. And like I've shown you guys with my 6-piece and a carry-on series, there are plenty of ways to find really inexpensive excursions, experiences, and things to do while you're in these destinations. So you also don't have to break bank. You don't have to spend another $600 just to do some wild, excursion or safari or, trip or whatever you've seen somebody else do. Just because you've seen like the most expensive option doesn't necessarily mean that that's something you have to do. And it doesn't mean that that's the only way to enjoy yourself at that destination. So keep in mind also that pricing is relative. I still have the same headphones that came with the phone. Like, I refuse to spend money on AirPods. I was asking Shah what the most expensive set of AirPods runs, right? He said $250. So between $150, because I've seen them on sale at, say, Best Buy, to $200, right? So let's go to one of my favorite apps, which is Skyscanner. And we're going, nope, not Skip Lag is also pretty useful. So all I did was go to the Explore page. I go to Explore Everywhere. I always fly out of JFK when possible. And you're going to put in Everywhere. And let's just say that you have flexible vacation, right? That's going to be the easiest way. Or say you're going to, when I say flexible vacation, I mean you can book your trip, then request the time off and say, hey, I would like to not be here because I just booked this flight. Let's see. First place out of the country. Canada from 171. DR 190. Mexico 195. And this is round trip, y'all. Because yes, this is round trip. I double checked. It's right. These are round trip prices. Let's see. So DR was 190, Mexico 195, El Salvador 205, Guatemala 214, Spain 219, Cuba 235, France 236, Costa Rica 247, and topping us out at 252 is U.S. Virgin Islands and Denmark at $253. Round motherfucking trip. So you can travel for the price of a set of AirPods. And I'm not saying that to like demean you or make you like think that, oh, well, you trying to say like I shouldn't have bought AirPods or whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying to you that pricing is relative. A lot of people would like to think that things are way more expensive and then make that the kind of reason why they don't do it. You have to consider what's important to you. If AirPods are important to you because you work with your hands a lot and you dress or you're doing things where cords are going to get in the way often, then that's an important purchase for you. Reasonable. Me, I'm not really doing much of nothing that the cords, it'll be annoying sometimes, but I'm not going to really be doing anything where I can't just untangle myself and keep going. So the same money that you would have spent on AirPods, you could book a flight, a round trip flight to how many places was that out of the country? We stopped at Denmark. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different countries. You can also go, of course, to the United States, as low as $98 round trip, and Puerto Rico, $141 round trip. But if you're trying to leave the country, you can absolutely do so in almost any different, at this point, they're mostly all warm, but except for, France and Denmark, which are a little cold right now. But that being said, you can see the world for the cost of a set of AirPods. And also keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to pay for everything in one shot. If you can plan out in advance, you can spend, or you can, I guess you could say, you can buy your flight when it's most affordable to you. If you know you want to go to France, then you can use a ton of different apps, Skiplag, Skyscanner, Google Flights, whatever it is you choose to use. I know former guest of mine, Gabby from Pax Light, started using a new app. So head over to her Instagram page, Pax Light. Scroll through some of the pictures and see if she has it listed, or it was in her stories a while ago. But I'm sure if you reach out to her, DM her, show her some love first. Don't just randomly pop up, but tell her I sent you if you'd like. But go to Pax Light or paxlight.com. She not only has a lot of these travel opportunities, but she's also really great with just, travel tips and stuff like that. And I know she mentioned a new app that she's been using for really inexpensive airfare. And in my mind, I'm going to check it out, but I just haven't been thinking about my next vacation. I mean, I have been thinking about it, but I haven't gotten into actual planning mode. But all that being said, if you've got the flexibility of paying for, or not paying, but scheduling something further in advance, like if you know that you want to do, like my homegirl was talking about, she's going to, I don't remember, let's just say Guatemala. She's going to Guatemala in September. I'm like, September's a whole year away, basically. That's like, it's 9 months after the new year. And she's like, not everybody just picks up and goes. People think that I pick up and go. It's just, I'm a last minute planner. So it assumes that I pick up and go. But for the most part, I know when I have vacation within the different quarters of the year. So if I know that I'm going someplace the end of January. I ain't really talking about it yet because I don't really have any plans. All that being said, you can book your flight, take a break, take a breath, recoup some bread, and then book your Airbnb. You can find really good Airbnbs the same day. You can find, and by same day, I mean like the same day, like you arrive kind of thing. You can find a good Airbnb 2 months, a week before, a couple of days before you decide to go to an area. Now, of course, you're going to have more options if you book them out further in advance, but I don't really do very well with a lot of options. It's kind of like when I think I want wings and I get to the restaurant and I see they've got 37 different flavors of wings and then 17 other things other than wings that I could fucking eat. Now all of a sudden I'm fucking confused. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I have a taste for. If I get wings, what kind of wings do I want? If I get wings, do I want beer or do I want liquor? Am I feeling like wine today? Distractions. All the options turn into distractions, and then I don't know what the fuck to do with myself. So that being said, I also kind of like picking an Airbnb much closer to the time that I'm going to arrive because I have fewer options. And at that point, it's just like, all right, what's available to me? What can I afford? What looks nice? And what's near what it is I want to do? So that being said, keep in mind that pricing is relative. You don't have to pay for it all in one shot. A lot of different, I believe airlines offer it now. I think Expedia even offers it. But an option for you is to pay your trip off in installments. I'm not against booking your entire trip through one party. If you decide to use a travel agent or something like that, a lot of them will let you pay in installments. I know if you're going on a cruise, my cousins and I tried to look into doing a cruise together. We were going to pay that shit off in installments. There are a lot of different options and a lot of different ways in which you can pay for it. Consider one credit card that you know's got a relatively low limit or so. Like say you have a card that's got like, I don't know, a $2,000 limit. If that bitch is maxed out, say when I pay that down to halfway or when I pay that card off, my treat is going to be now booking a trip for myself. This way you can then pay it off in installments. I don't know. Just think of something that helps your ass get your goals accomplished, right? Also in the same vein as paying for things in installments, consider your cell phones. They don't give these bitches away for free anymore. So you're paying an installment on your fucking phone every month. So the same $45 you're paying on your cell phone, the same $35 or whatever you're paying, consider putting that money, that passive money into an account that you don't fuck with too often. If you've got another, even if it's not necessarily a savings account, if you just have a checking account someplace, or a lot of banks will let you open another checking account and not really fuck with like what the minimum has to be in there, or if you keep above a certain amount, they won't charge you for the account. Whatever the case may be. I know I bank with Chase, and I opened a separate checking account so that I could keep my savings separate from my my regular swipe card, my regular debit card. This way I would have access to the funds should I need it, but the funds would still be separate. So consider taking the time to go to HR, get one of them direct deposit forms, and have it so that $45 or $50 comes out of every check and goes into an account that you don't frequently access, so that every couple of months you check in and it's just like, oh, I got $500 sitting here. Every time you get to $500, consider booking, something travel related. Or even if travel isn't necessarily your thing at this point, you could use that shit for Christmas, so that by the time Christmas next year comes around, you're not scrambling around looking for bread, or you're not, concerned with whether or not you're going to tap into money that you wanted to spend on something else, on, doing for other people. So definitely consider, if you're doing little things here and there, small bills that you think, like small bills that you're willing to incur for different things in your life, consider that same amount just going someplace, that's not in your immediate reach, so that when the time comes, or when you reach a certain financial goal or milestone, you're then going to be able to take that bread and do something that you want to do, whether it be paying for the next flight, paying for, the entire trip, or whatever it is you're looking to do with, that money. What was the other thing I said? Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, another thing that I believed to be true, but didn't know until I started traveling, was what the fuck actual fruits look like. I'd never seen like a non-genetically modified avocado. So when I finally saw what they actually looked like, I was shocked. I didn't know oranges were actually green. Learned that in Cuba. There was something else that I saw over there that I couldn't remember what it was, but I just remember there being a bunch of different fruits that I had never seen, like, grown naturally. Oh, like bananas. I think like actual bananas like have seeds in them, or it was just, it didn't dawn on me how processed a lot of our food is here in the States. And so seeing it and eating it overseas was like a really mind opening experience, because even though a lot of this shit we're paying for it to be organic, it's still not what it looks like in nature. Like tilapia, tilapia doesn't even occur in the wild. Like, my dad told me that like I think he told me a couple years ago. I mean, when I'm down and out, I'll still buy some tilapia. Shit is good. But it's just like, here in this, I just feel like in the United States, the stuff that we're okay with ingesting in a lot of cases, it gets a little, like, people like to think that like so many third world countries are just, oh, they don't have this kind of food and they don't have that, and but a lot of the shit that they're eating is actually grown from the ground. It's fresh, and it's not, designed and engineered. Not to say that all things designed and engineered are bad. I have definitely tried, in that little vegan wave that I was in, a lot of plant-based things, and even some of those things kind of, how are you plant-basing this meat? Like the Impossible Burger. My parents picked me up from the airport couple weeks ago, we went to Burger King. I was ready to order some nuggets. My mom's like, I want an Impossible Burger. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. So we tried it. That bitch is good. It's fucking delicious. And I've never had a Whopper. I have never had a burger from Burger King. I've never had a burger from McDonald's. I tried a burger from Wendy's back when I was 25. And that was because I was in this phase of trying something new every day the month before I turned 25. I had an incredulous quarter life crisis. But that aside, yeah, the shit was delicious. I don't know what the fuck is in there. Say it's plant-based, but you can engineer and chemicals and things with plants too, y'all. So I don't know what all this plant-based stuff that ain't really plants, or is it? I don't know. It's kind of weirding me out. Oh, then it's then there was the thing of, what was it? My idea of public transportation. In New York, it's trash. It's disgusting. It barely works, and nobody really wants to be on it. We're doing it because we have to, or we're doing it because in some instances it's more convenient. It's easier to get on the train to get to Manhattan than it is for me to drive to Manhattan and from Manhattan from work. But in other countries, not only is the shit cleaner, a lot of times it makes more sense. In Austria, when you come down the stairs into their subway system, there is a list on like the column, like the wall between the two different sides of the tube that tell you which side to go to get to what station it is you're going to go to. So say you're going to Red Handle is the stop that you're looking for. You go down the list of stops and it's showing you that Red Handle, you're going to go this way. When you get to this side of the tube, there's another listing of where Red Handle falls in the line of different stops. So you're going to go all the way down here and say, oh, here's where I am. Red Handle is 4 stops the fuck away. In Tel Aviv, their buses, I don't really like taking buses abroad because, especially if it's a different language, because if you don't understand the language, it's hard to read the street signs. So it was a little difficult, but I figured out that their buses go by intersections. So once you figure out what's going on, it becomes a little easy to navigate. Also, them shits is fucking clean. The cleanest bus I ever rode in my life was in Bermuda. When I tell you, I thought like I was not necessarily on a coach bus because it's set up just like our buses, but you're looking at beautiful ocean on both sides of you. There's absolutely no eating on the bus. Everybody abides by that shit. And it's like people aren't throwing trash on the floor. They're not having loud conversations on the phone, at least not the bus that I was on. So it was a really great experience riding the bus in Bermuda. And that train in Tel Aviv was fancy as fuck. I think I posted a picture of that on the Instagram. Also, that shit looked nice. Like swinging doors, huge ass bathroom. Somebody opened the door to come out or into the bathroom. The bitch looked clean on the train. So yeah, public transportation, it's not a total shit show everywhere else in the world. So if you're traveling, I always suggest, unless like taxis are like $10 wherever you're trying to go, take the train. A lot of times it's faster, it is clean, and it gives you an experience that you wouldn't necessarily have gotten otherwise. And you're able to, depending on how the train is set up, if it's above ground, underground, you can see a lot of the different neighborhoods along the way to where it is you're staying. So there's more to see, as opposed to just the area you're going to be in. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that my understanding of a minority was shifted. You guys can run back a few episodes to the one that I had with I think her name is Mickey, one of my guides from Shanghai. We were passing by a school and she mentioned that it's a minority school. So I'm not oblivious that minorities are just the minority of the group. Whatever the whole is, whatever the demographic of the smaller portion of that group can make you the minority. You can be a woman. You could be the minority in a group. You could be a redhead, and that's the minority of the group. But just because you have an understanding of something doesn't mean that the application of it always, um, I guess, resonates for you. So the idea that in a society where everyone is basically the same, like they're all Chinese, I would not have anticipated like just the idea of a minority, period. And it just wasn't as pronounced of a difference for me because I'm an outsider. So for people that are in China and the people that are from the different groups, to them it's obvious. But to me, coming from a minority group, from where I am, it just definitely fucked with my head hearing that someone that didn't necessarily identify with the qualities or markers of what a minority was in my mind, like it applied differently in another context. So that was definitely one of the more like big things in terms of what my understanding of something was, what I believed to be true. That definitely changed. So it's Christmas. I hope you guys are having a really great holiday this year. Happy Kwanzaa. I definitely suggest that you guys go back to, it was definitely one of the first episodes. Let me see. Episode Black Travel Movement. It was episode 13. Double back and check that one out. That was a really fun Kwanzaa edition that I did. So Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever holiday you celebrate. I hope everybody had a good one. Hope everybody has a safe one. Don't forget that with all these gift cards that you're getting and in any aspect where you might be returning gifts, consider also spending that money with Black businesses. So there's always a good time to revisit different people that I've mentioned in the past episodes. And definitely check out dcarry.com, where I will actually put those links up if you haven't seen them already. I appreciate you guys gifting me with your listens and your streams. And since we're on the topic of gifts, tell your people, tell your friends, tell them to listen to the podcast, and enjoy travel conversations together. All right, guys. Bye. Happy holidays.